The coffee grounds had run out 3 days ago, and Zara Hayes was ready to fight God himself for just one more cup. She stood in front of the general store in Tulsa, Indian Territory, on a sweltering July morning in 1887, staring at the handwritten sign that made her want to weep. No coffee until next shipment. The proprietor, a weathered man named Mr. Perkins, had apologized profusely, explaining that the railroad delays had thrown everything into chaos. But apologies did not brew coffee, and Zara had built her entire morning routine around that bitter, life-giving drink. Without it, she was a shadow of herself. The headaches had started on day 2, pounding behind her eyes like a determined blacksmith. By day 3, her patience had worn thinner than rice paper, and she had snapped at poor Mrs. Chen at the boarding house where she worked as a bookkeeper. Now, standing in the dusty street with the Oklahoma sun beating down mercilessly, Zara felt tears of frustration pricking at her eyes. "You look like you could use some help, miss." The voice came from behind her, low and smooth as aged whiskey. Zara turned, blinking against the bright light, and found herself looking up at a man who seemed carved from the very earth itself. He was tall, with broad shoulders that stretched his worn cotton shirt, and eyes the color of rich soil after rain. His hair, dark brown and slightly too long, curled at the edges beneath his hat. He could not have been much older than she was, perhaps 25 to her 23 years. "Unless you have coffee hidden in those saddlebags, I doubt anyone can help me," Zara said, her voice sharper than she intended. She pressed her fingers to her temples, trying to massage away the persistent ache. The man's lips curved into a small smile. "As a matter of fact, I do have coffee. More than I need, actually. My ranch hand ordered double the usual amount last month, thinking we would need it for the cattle drive. But we finished early, and now I have got enough coffee to keep a small army awake for a month." Zara's heart leaped, and she had to stop herself from grabbing the stranger by his shirt. "You are serious, completely. Name is Adam Anderson. I own the Double-A Ranch about 5 miles west of town." He extended his hand, and Zara shook it, noting the calluses that spoke of hard work and the warmth that seemed to radiate from his skin. "Zara Hayes. I keep the books at the Hayes boarding house. Well, it is my aunt's place, but I manage the accounts." She realized she was still holding his hand and quickly released it, feeling heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the Oklahoma sun. "If you would like, I could bring you some coffee tomorrow morning." "Save you the trip out to the ranch," Adam offered, adjusting his hat with his free hand. "Tomorrow morning." Zara's desperation must have shown on her face because Adam's expression shifted to one of genuine concern. "Or I could bring it by this evening if you prefer. I have got a few more errands to run in town, but I should be finished by sundown. This evening would be wonderful. The boarding house is on the corner of 2nd and Main, the white building with the green shutters." Zara felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. The promise of coffee, even hours away, was enough to lift her spirits considerably. "I will find it. And Miss Hayes." Adam's voice stopped her as she began to turn away. "Maybe go easy on yourself today. Coffee withdrawals are no joke. I went without for a week once during a spring storm. Nearly bit my ranch hand's head off for whistling." Zara laughed, a genuine sound that surprised her. "I already snapped at the sweetest woman in Tulsa this morning. I owe her an apology and probably a pie." "Mrs. Chen," Adam guessed, and when Zara nodded in surprise, he added, "Small town." "She is indeed the sweetest. Makes a peach cobbler that could make a grown man cry." As Adam tipped his hat and walked away, Zara found herself watching him go, noting the confident stride and the way he greeted nearly everyone he passed. There was something solid about him, something that made her feel steadier just from a brief conversation. The rest of the day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Zara apologized to Mrs. Chen, who waved away her concerns with characteristic grace. She balanced the boarding house ledgers, welcomed two new guests who were passing through on their way to Texas, and tried not to watch the clock too obviously. Her aunt, Martha Hayes, a spirited woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, noticed her distraction. "You are jumpier than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs," Martha observed, setting down a basket of freshly laundered linens. "What has gotten into you?" "Nothing. Just a headache." Zara rubbed her temples again, a habit she had developed over the past few days. "From the coffee, I would wager. I told you that drinking 3 cups every morning would make you dependent on the stuff." But Martha's tone was fond rather than scolding. She had taken Zara in 6 years ago when Zara's parents had died in a typhoid outbreak and treated her more like a daughter than a niece. "A rancher named Adam Anderson is bringing some by this evening. He has extra from his ranch." Martha's eyebrows rose with interest. "Adam Anderson?" "The one who bought the old Mitchell place 3 years back, turned it into one of the most successful cattle operations in the territory." "I suppose so. He did not mention the details of his ranching success." "Handsome fellow, if I recall. Saw him at the church social last spring." Half the unmarried women in Tulsa were making eyes at him, but he spent the whole evening helping set up tables and talking to old Mr. Finch about irrigation techniques. Martha gave Zara a meaningful look. Practical and polite, hard combination to find. "He is just bringing coffee, Aunt Martha." But Zara felt that unwelcome heat in her cheeks again. "Of course, dear, just coffee." When the sun finally began its descent, painting the Oklahoma sky in shades of orange and pink, Zara found herself stationed near the front window of the boarding house, pretending to read a book while actually watching the street. She felt ridiculous, like a character in one of those penny dreadfuls that the guests sometimes left behind. But she could not help it. The promise of coffee had become tangled up with the memory of warm brown eyes and a genuine smile. True to his word, Adam appeared just as the street lamps were being lit. He rode a handsome chestnut mare and carried a canvas bag that clinked softly with each movement. Zara was out the door before he could dismount, then forced herself to slow down and approach with some semblance of dignity. "Miss Hayes." Adam touched his hat brim, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I brought you enough to last a couple of weeks, assuming you drink a reasonable amount each day." 3 cups in the morning," Zara said quickly, reaching for the bag. The weight of it felt like pure gold in her hands. "That is reasonable enough. I usually have 4 before I can face the day properly." Adam swung down from his horse with easy grace. "Would you mind if I got some water for Rosie here? It is a long ride back, and I pushed her a bit to get here before full dark." "Of course." "There is a trough just around the side of the house, and a pump if it needs filling." Zara clutched the bag of coffee to her chest like a treasure. "How much do I owe you for this?" "Nothing. Consider it a welcome to the neighborhood, even though you have been here longer than I have." Adam was already leading his horse toward the trough, but he glanced back over his shoulder. "Although if you wanted to share a cup sometime, I would not say no. It is nice to meet someone else who appreciates a good strong brew." Before Zara could respond, Martha appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Anderson, what perfect timing. I just pulled a pot roast from the oven, and we have far too much for just Zara and me. Would you care to stay for dinner? It is the least we can do to thank you for your kindness." Zara shot her aunt a look that clearly said she knew exactly what Martha was doing, but Martha's expression was the picture of innocent hospitality. Adam hesitated, and for a moment Zara thought he would decline. Then his stomach gave an audible rumble and he laughed. "I would be honored, Mrs. Hayes. Thank you. Let me just take care of Rosie first." Dinner was a lively affair. Martha proved to be an excellent hostess, drawing out stories of Adam's life with skillful questions. Zara learned that he had come to Oklahoma from Kansas 3 years ago, drawn by the opportunity to build something of his own. He had worked as a ranch hand since he was 15, saving every penny until he had enough to buy the Mitchell property, which had been on the verge of foreclosure. "It was not much when I got it," Adam said, accepting a second helping of pot roast. "The house was half collapsed, the fences were down, and the previous owner had let the grazing land go to seed, but I saw the potential. Good water source, plenty of grass, close enough to Tulsa for convenient supply runs but far enough out for real peace and quiet." "You built it up yourself?" Zara asked, fascinated despite herself. "Mostly. I hired help when I needed it, but I did the majority of the work with my own hands. There is something satisfying about that, you know, seeing something grow from nothing because of your own effort." Adam's eyes lit up when he talked about his ranch, and Zara found herself drawn to his passion. So many men she had met were either aimless or bitter, worn down by the harsh realities of frontier life. Adam seemed different, energized by challenges rather than defeated by them. "That is how I feel about the books," Zara said, surprising herself with the admission. "When I first took over the accounts, they were a mess. Bills stuffed in drawers, no clear record of who owed what or when things were due. It took me 3 months to sort it all out, but now I can tell you exactly where every penny goes. There is a satisfaction in that kind of order." "A woman after my own heart," Martha said with a warm smile. "My late husband used to say that chaos was the natural state of the universe, and trying to fight it was madness. But Zara here proved him wrong, bless his soul." As the evening wore on, the conversation flowed easily from topic to topic. They discussed the upcoming territorial fair, the new schoolteacher who had arrived from Boston and was causing quite a stir with her progressive ideas, and the ongoing debate about Oklahoma's eventual statehood. Zara found herself laughing more than she had in months, and the persistent headache that had plagued her finally began to fade. When Adam finally rose to leave, the moon was high and bright overhead. Martha tactfully excused herself to check on the other guests, leaving Zara to walk Adam to his horse. "Thank you again for the coffee," Zara said, wrapping her shawl more tightly around her shoulders against the cooling night air, "and for staying for dinner. I hope Martha did not strong-arm you too terribly." "Not at all. It was the best meal I have had in months. I am a passable cook, but my repertoire mostly consists of beans, more beans, and occasionally steak." Adam gathered Rosie's reins but made no move to mount. "I enjoyed the company even more than the food, if I am being honest. We do not get many interesting dinner guests. Most of our boarders are just passing through, too tired from traveling to do much more than eat and sleep." Zara looked up at the stars, brilliant and uncountable in the clear Oklahoma sky. It was nice to have a real conversation. "Maybe we could do it again sometime. If you wanted to, I mean. I could teach you to make a decent camp coffee, the kind that could wake the dead. And you could show me how you keep such organized books. Mine are a disaster." Adam's voice held a note of hope that made Zara's heart skip. "I would like that," Zara said softly. Then, more boldly, "How about next Sunday, after church if you attend?" "I do. The Little Methodist Church on Oak Street. I will look for you there." Adam swung into the saddle, then looked down at her with an expression that was hard to read in the moonlight. "Good night, Zara Hayes. May your morning coffee be strong and your headaches disappear." "Good night, Adam Anderson. Ride safely." Zara watched him ride away until he was swallowed by the darkness, then turned back to the boarding house to find Martha watching from the window with an extremely satisfied expression. The next morning, Zara woke before dawn and practically ran to the kitchen. She measured out the coffee grounds with reverent care, inhaling the rich aroma that she had missed so desperately. As the coffee brewed, filling the kitchen with its wonderful scent, she felt her whole body relax. This was her ritual, her moment of peace before the day began in earnest. But as she poured her first cup and took that glorious first sip, she found her thoughts drifting not to the coffee itself, but to the man who had brought it. Adam's smile, the way his voice softened when he talked about his ranch, the calluses on his hands that spoke of honest work. She shook her head, trying to clear away such thoughts. It was just coffee. He was just being neighborly, except it did not feel like just anything. Sunday came both too slowly and too quickly. Zara changed her dress 3 times before settling on a simple blue cotton that brought out the color of her eyes, then scolded herself for caring so much about her appearance. It was church, after all, not a formal dance. But her hands trembled slightly as she pinned her dark hair into a neat bun, and she took extra care with the small touches that usually did not matter much to her. Martha noticed, of course, but had the grace not to comment beyond a knowing smile. The Methodist church was a modest white building with a tall steeple and windows that caught the morning light beautifully. Zara and Martha arrived early, as was their custom, and took their usual pew 3 rows from the front. Zara told herself she was not watching the door. She was simply observing who was attending service, as one naturally did. Adam arrived just as the opening hymn began, slipping into a pew near the back. He wore clean clothes and had clearly made an effort to tame his hair, though a few rebellious curls still escaped at the edges. When his eyes found Zara's across the crowded church, his whole face brightened, and he gave her a small wave. Zara had never had such difficulty concentrating on a sermon in her life. Reverend Matthews was speaking about patience and faith, about trusting in God's timing, but all she could think about was the man sitting 6 rows behind her. She forced herself to focus, to take in the words and the music, to participate in the responsive readings with proper attention. But her awareness of Adam's presence was like a low hum beneath everything else, constant and impossible to ignore. After the service, the congregation gathered outside to socialize as they always did. Children ran shrieking between the adults, released from the constraint of sitting still. Women clustered in groups to share news and recipes. Men discussed crops and weather and the ever-present concern of land rights in the territory. Zara made her way through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries, until she found herself face to face with Adam. "Miss Hayes, you look lovely this morning." Adam removed his hat, holding it in both hands. Up close in the bright daylight, Zara could see that his eyes were not just brown but had flecks of gold in them, like honey held up to the sun. "Thank you. You clean up rather well yourself, Mr. Anderson." Was she flirting? She was definitely flirting. When had she learned to flirt? "About that coffee lesson," Adam began, then was interrupted by a cheerful voice. "Adam Anderson, you have been holding out on us." A young woman with blonde ringlets and a dress far too fancy for a simple Sunday service appeared at Adam's elbow, batting her eyelashes with practiced charm. "You promised me a dance at the church social last month, and then you disappeared before the music even started." "Hello, Caroline. I apologize for that. There was a problem with one of my cattle, and I had to get back to the ranch." Adam's voice was polite but not particularly warm. Caroline Prescott, Zara realized. The banker's daughter, known for her beauty and her determination to secure a wealthy husband. She had gone through half the eligible bachelors in Tulsa like a whirlwind, finding each one lacking in some critical way. Well, you simply must make it up to me. Father is hosting a dinner party next Saturday, and I would be delighted if you would attend. Caroline finally seemed to notice Zara's presence. Oh, hello, Zara. How is the boarding house? Still taking in strays and drifters? The casual dismissal in Caroline's tone made Zara's jaw tighten. We provide respectable lodging for travelers, and our bookings are quite full. Thank you for asking. How charming. Caroline turned her full attention back to Adam, effectively cutting Zara out of the conversation. So, will you come? Father has imported wine from California, and Mother has hired a chef from St. Louis. That is very kind, but I am afraid I already have plans for Saturday. Adam's eyes flickered to Zara. Prior commitments. Oh, Caroline's expression cooled several degrees. Well, perhaps another time then. As Caroline flounced away, clearly miffed at being rejected, Adam let out a long breath. Sorry about that, Caroline is persistent, so I have noticed. Though I was not aware we had plans for Saturday. Zara raised an eyebrow. We do now, if you are amenable. I thought maybe you could come out to the ranch, see the operation, have that coffee lesson I mentioned. I could send my ranch hand, Miguel, to escort you if propriety demands it. Adam looked slightly embarrassed. That was presumptuous of me, using you as an excuse like that. But the thought of sitting through a dinner party with Caroline Prescott batting her eyes at me all evening was more than I could bear. Zara laughed. I am not offended. And yes, I would love to see your ranch, but Martha should probably come along, at least for this first visit, small-town gossip being what it is. Of course. I would be happy to host you both, say around 10 in the morning. That will give me time to make the place presentable. They made their arrangements, and Zara floated through the rest of the day in a pleasant haze. When she finally confessed to Martha about the planned visit, her aunt clapped her hands in delight. I have always wanted to see the AA. People say Adam has done wonders with the place. And it will be good for you to get out of town for a day. You work too hard, Zara. A young woman needs some adventure in her life. Saturday morning dawned clear and beautiful, with just enough breeze to keep the heat at bay. Adam arrived promptly at 10 with a wagon and that same chestnut mare, Rosie, trailing behind on a lead. He helped both women into the wagon with courteous efficiency, and they set off down the dusty road that led west from Tulsa. The countryside rolled past in shades of gold and green. They passed other ranches and farms, small homesteads carved out of the wild territory through sheer determination. Adam pointed out landmarks and shared bits of local history, his voice carrying easily over the creak of the wagon wheels and the steady clip-clop of hooves. That creek there is where the Reynolds boys tried to pan for gold back in '85, he said, gesturing to a slim ribbon of water glinting in the sunlight. Spent 6 months sifting through mud before they finally accepted that there is no gold in Indian Territory. Now they raise chickens and do quite well for themselves. Chickens are more reliable than gold, Martha observed, and considerably less likely to cause fights. The Double-A Ranch announced itself gradually. First came the improved fencing, straight and strong. Then the grazing cattle, healthy and well-tended. Finally, the buildings themselves came into view, and Zara caught her breath. Adam had undersold his accomplishments. The ranch house was a solid 2-story structure with a wide porch and real glass in the windows. The barn was massive and well-maintained, painted a cheerful red that stood out against the prairie landscape. There were several outbuildings, corrals, and even a small garden plot bursting with vegetables. You built all this in 3 years? Zara asked, awestruck. With help, Adam said modestly. I could not have done it alone. Miguel, my ranch hand, has been with me since the beginning, and I hired extra labor for the big projects. But yes, this is home. A man emerged from the barn as they pulled up, lean and weather-beaten with a ready smile. This would be Miguel, Zara assumed. He raised a hand in greeting. Boss, the fence in the north pasture is holding well. No sign of any breaks overnight. Miguel's English carried a slight accent, his heritage evident in his features. Excellent. Miguel, this is Miss Zara Hayes and Mrs. Martha Hayes. Ladies, this is Miguel Reyes. He keeps this place running while I fumble around pretending to know what I am doing. Miguel laughed. He is too modest. Adam works harder than any man I have known. Welcome to the AA, ladies. Please let me help you down. The tour of the ranch took over an hour. Adam showed them everything from the cattle operation to the chicken coop, from the hay storage to the small workshop where he repaired equipment. He spoke with pride but never boastfulness, always crediting others when credit was due. Zara found herself impressed not just by what he had built, but by how he had built it, with integrity and respect for everyone involved. The coffee lesson, Adam finally said as they returned to the ranch house. I am going to teach you the secret to perfect camp coffee. The kind that will wake you up and keep you going even in the harshest conditions. He led them to the kitchen, which was surprisingly tidy for a bachelor household. From a cabinet, he produced a battered coffee pot and a bag of grounds. The key is the ratio and the timing. Too weak and it is pointless. Too strong and it will strip the lining from your stomach. But get it just right and you have got liquid gold. Zara watched intently as Adam demonstrated his technique, explaining each step. He heated the water until it was just below boiling, added the grounds in careful measure, then let it steep for exactly 4 minutes before pouring. The coffee that resulted was indeed perfect, rich and strong without being bitter. Now you try, Adam said, handing her a spoon. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and Zara felt a jolt of awareness run through her. She focused on the task at hand, following his instructions, acutely aware of his presence just behind her shoulder. When she poured her attempt, Adam tasted it and nodded with approval. Excellent. You are a natural. That is better than my first 100 attempts. Martha, who had been watching the entire exchange with barely concealed amusement, suddenly announced that she wanted to see the garden in more detail. I have been trying to grow tomatoes for years with limited success. Miguel, would you mind showing me your techniques? Miguel, who seemed to understand exactly what Martha was doing, agreed immediately. Of course, Senora Hayes. I would be delighted. And just like that, Zara and Adam were alone in the kitchen, cups of coffee in hand and a loaded silence between them. Your aunt is not very subtle, Adam said with a grin. No, she is not. I apologize if this is uncomfortable for you. Uncomfortable. Zara, having you here is the best thing that has happened to me in longer than I care to admit. Adam set down his coffee cup and turned to face her fully. I have been thinking about you all week. About your laugh, about the way you light up when you talk about organizing things, about how you did not let Caroline Prescott's rudeness dim your smile. I know we have only just met, but I would very much like to continue getting to know you, properly. With intention. Zara's heart hammered in her chest. With intention, she repeated, making sure she understood his meaning. Courting, to use the old-fashioned term, if that is something you would welcome. If not, I understand. We can just be friends and I will be grateful for that. But I wanted you to know how I feel. Life is too short and too uncertain out here to play games or hide the truth. Adam's honesty was disarming, his vulnerability evident in every word. I would welcome that very much, Zara heard herself say. I have been thinking about you too. More than is probably proper for such a short acquaintance. The smile that broke across Adam's face was like sunrise, bright and full of promise. He reached out and gently took her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. "Then we are agreed. I will court you properly, with your aunt's permission and all the appropriate steps. I will not rush you, and I will not make promises I cannot keep. But Zara Hayes, I am going to do my very best to win your heart." "You have made an excellent start," Zara said softly, squeezing his hand. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing stories from their pasts. Zara told Adam about losing her parents, about the terror and grief of watching them succumb to illness, about Martha's kindness in taking her in. Adam spoke of his own family, his father's death when he was young, his mother's remarriage to a man who saw Adam as nothing more than free labor. "That is why I left Kansas as soon as I was old enough," Adam said. "I wanted to build something that was mine, something no one could take away or claim credit for. This ranch is not just land and cattle to me. It is proof that I am more than what my stepfather said I was. It is freedom." "I understand that," Zara said. "The boarding house accounts are mine in the same way. Martha gave me that responsibility, trusted me with it. It is the first thing I have ever really owned, even if it is just numbers in a ledger." They were sitting on the porch by then, watching the afternoon light paint the prairie in shades of amber. Martha and Miguel had returned from the garden long ago, tactfully finding things to do inside that gave the young couple privacy while still maintaining propriety. "What do you want, Zara?" "Not what your aunt wants for you, not what society expects, but what you dream about in the quiet moments." Adam's question was gentle but direct. Zara considered carefully before answering. "Stability, I think. Not in a boring way, but in a deep way. I want to know that tomorrow will come, that the people I love will be there. I spent so long feeling unmoored after my parents died. I want roots. I want to matter to someone. I want to build something lasting." She paused, then added with a small laugh, "And I want really good coffee every morning." Those all seem like worthy goals, particularly the coffee one. That is non-negotiable. Adam was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want the same things. Partnership. Someone to build a life with, not just exist beside. Children, eventually, if we are blessed. I want this ranch to be more than just a business. I want it to be a home." The way he said "we," as if Zara was already part of that future, made her breath catch. It was too soon to be thinking such thoughts, her rational mind insisted. But her heart was not listening to her rational mind. As the sun began to set, Adam drove Zara and Martha back to town. They made plans for him to come to dinner again on Wednesday, and for Zara to attend a community dance with him the following Saturday. The courting was official, acknowledged, and Zara felt as though she was walking on air. The next few weeks passed in a blur of happiness. Adam came to town twice a week, always finding excuses to extend his errands so he could spend time with Zara. They took walks along the creek, attended church socials, and spent long evenings on the boarding house porch talking about everything and nothing. Martha chaperoned when necessary, but gave them space when she could, clearly approving of the match. Zara found herself falling in love with more than just Adam's character. She loved the way he treated everyone with respect, from the wealthiest rancher to the poorest drifter. She loved his work ethic, the way he never complained but simply did what needed doing. She loved his laugh, which came easily and was contagious. She loved how he remembered small details, like the fact that she preferred her coffee black, or that she found purple wildflowers particularly beautiful, and he was falling too. She could see it in the way he looked at her, as if she was the most precious thing in the world. She could hear it in his voice when he said her name. She could feel it in the careful, respectful way he touched her hand or arm, always proper but filled with restrained longing. The first kiss came 6 weeks into their courtship, on a warm evening in late August. They had been walking along the creek, Martha a discreet distance behind reading a book on a fallen log. The conversation had lulled into comfortable silence, and they stood watching the water flow past, golden in the sunset light. "Zara," Adam said softly, "may I kiss you?" She turned to him, her heart racing. Yes. It was gentle, almost chaste, his lips barely brushing hers. But it felt like a promise, like the first page of a story that would fill volumes. When they pulled apart, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I am in love with you," he whispered. "I know it is soon, but I am certain. You are everything I did not know I was looking for." "I love you too," Zara said, the words flowing easily because they were true. "So much it frightens me sometimes." "Do not be frightened. I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me now." Zara Hayes. That night, as Zara lay in bed unable to sleep, she realized that Adam had become her morning. Not the coffee, though she still deeply appreciated it, but Adam. The thought of seeing him was what pulled her out of bed with eagerness. His presence was what energized her, what made each day feel full of possibility. The coffee had simply been the excuse, the catalyst that brought him into her life. September brought a change in the weather, cooler nights, and the first hints of autumn color. It also brought a challenge neither of them had anticipated. Adam arrived at the boarding house one evening looking troubled. Zara met him at the door, immediately sensing something was wrong. "What is it? What has happened?" "Land dispute," Adam said grimly. "A man named Samuel Porter has filed a claim on part of my northern pasture. Says it was never properly surveyed and he has a legal right to it. We are going before the territorial judge next week." Zara knew what the northern pasture meant to Adam. It held the best water source on his property and was essential for his cattle. Losing it could cripple the ranch. "What proof does he have?" she asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. "That is the problem. The original surveys from when the territory was opened were sloppy in places. Lines were not clearly marked. Porter is exploiting those gaps." Adam ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I have been to the land office 3 times this week, trying to track down the original documentation. It is a mess, Zara. Papers filed in different locations, some missing entirely." "Let me help," Zara said immediately. "I am good with records and organization. 2 sets of eyes are better than one, and I am not emotionally invested like you are. I can be objective." "I cannot ask you to do that. You have your own work." "You are not asking. I am offering. Adam, I love you. Your problems are my problems now. That is what partnership means." Zara took his hands in hers. "Let me help you fight this." They spent the next 5 days buried in documents. Zara accompanied Adam to the land office, where they systematically went through every survey, deed, and claim filed in the area. It was tedious, eye-straining work, made more difficult by the disorganized state of the records. But Zara had patience and a methodical approach. On the 4th day, she found it. A surveyor's note from 1884, filed in the wrong year's records, that clearly marked the boundary line. According to the note, the disputed land was well within Adam's property, and Porter's claim had no merit. "I cannot believe you found this," Adam said, staring at the document as if it were made of gold. "I went through these files twice and did not see it." "Fresh eyes," Zara said, though she was equally thrilled. "And honestly, whoever organized this system should be ashamed. I am itching to reorganize the entire land office. It would take a few weeks, but I could create a proper index." Adam laughed, then pulled her into a hug, right there in the land office with the clerk pretending not to notice. "You are extraordinary, do you know that? Absolutely extraordinary." The hearing went in Adam's favor. The judge reviewed the surveyor's note, examined Porter's claim, and ruled that there had been an error in Porter's understanding of the boundary lines. Adam kept his land, and his ranch remained secure. To celebrate, Adam organized a picnic on the disputed land itself, inviting not just Zara and Martha, but also Miguel and several of their friends from town. It was a beautiful late September day, warm but not hot, with wildflowers still blooming in brilliant patches. They spread blankets under a copse of cottonwood trees and shared food and laughter. As the afternoon wore on and the others were engaged in a spirited game of horseshoes, Adam drew Zara aside. "Walk with me," he asked, offering his arm. They strolled away from the group, following the creek that ran through the pasture. The sound of water and distant laughter created a peaceful backdrop. Adam seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. He kept starting to speak, then stopping, his jaw working as if he was chewing over words. "Adam, you are making me nervous," Zara finally said. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right, actually. That is what I am trying to figure out how to say." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I had a whole speech planned. I have been practicing it all week. But now that the moment is here, I cannot remember a single word of it." Zara's heart began to race. "What moment?" "The moment when I ask you to marry me." Adam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I love you, Zara Hayes. You saved my ranch, but more than that, you saved me from a life of loneliness. You make everything better just by existing. You are brilliant and kind and so beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to drink terrible camp coffee with you and organize ledgers together and build something lasting. I want children with your eyes and your brain. I want to be your partner in everything." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small sapphire, the blue stone catching the light. "It is not much. I am not a wealthy man, not yet, but I promise I will spend the rest of my life trying to give you everything you deserve. Zara Hayes, will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down Zara's face, and she was nodding before he even finished speaking. "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. I do not need wealth, Adam. I just need you. You are all I want." He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, deeper and more passionate than ever before, and Zara felt as though her heart would burst from happiness. The celebration that followed was joyous. Their friends cheered and congratulated them. Martha cried happy tears and hugged Adam so tightly he laughed and said he could not breathe. Miguel clapped Adam on the back and told Zara she was getting a good man. They toasted with lemonade and made plans late into the evening. They decided on a November wedding, giving them just enough time to make proper arrangements without waiting too long. Zara would move to the ranch after the wedding, though she would continue helping Martha with the boarding house books remotely. Adam started making additions to the ranch house, adding a proper office for Zara and expanding the main bedroom. The engagement period passed in a flurry of activity. There was so much to do, so many decisions to make. Zara worked with Martha to sew her wedding dress, a beautiful cream-colored gown with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Adam worked with Miguel to prepare the ranch, repairing every small thing that had been neglected, painting and cleaning until the place shone. The whole town seemed invested in their happiness. Mrs. Chen offered to make the wedding cake. Reverend Matthews agreed to perform the ceremony. Even Caroline Prescott, who had initially been frosty about the engagement, eventually came around and offered to help decorate the church. "You are good for him," Caroline admitted to Zara one afternoon while they were stringing flowers. "I can see that." Adam smiles more now. He seems settled in a way he was not before. "Thank you for saying that," Zara said, surprised by Caroline's sincerity. "I may be vain and spoiled, but I am not cruel. I want people to be happy, even if their happiness does not involve me." Caroline tied off a ribbon with practiced efficiency. Besides, I have been corresponding with a lawyer in Guthrie. He writes a very good letter. The night before the wedding, Zara stayed at the boarding house as tradition demanded. She lay awake in her childhood bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of the house settling, the distant bark of a dog, the wind rustling the trees outside her window. Tomorrow she would be married. Tomorrow she would begin a new chapter of her life. But she was not afraid. She was ready. More than ready. The wedding day dawned crisp and clear, a perfect November morning. Zara dressed with Martha's help, her hands steady as she buttoned the tiny pearl buttons on her gown. The sapphire engagement ring glinted on her finger, soon to be joined by a matching wedding band. "You look beautiful," Martha said, her eyes bright with tears. "Your mother would have been so proud. You have grown into such a remarkable woman." "I had a good teacher," Zara said, embracing her aunt. "Thank you for everything, Aunt Martha, for taking me in, for loving me, for letting me find my own path. It has been my joy and privilege. Now let us get you to that church before Adam wears a hole in the floor from pacing." The church was packed with well-wishers. It seemed like half of Tulsa had turned out for the ceremony. Zara walked down the aisle on Martha's arm, her eyes locked on Adam waiting at the altar. He looked handsome in his best suit, his hair neatly combed, his face full of love and wonder as he watched her approach. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. Zara heard Reverend Matthews's words as if from a great distance, her entire focus on Adam's face, on his hands holding hers, on the promises they spoke to each other. To love, to honor, to cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, until death parted them. When Adam kissed her as his wife, the church erupted in applause and cheers. They turned to face their community, husband and wife, ready to begin their life together. The reception was held at the boarding house, with tables spread throughout the main floor and spilling out onto the porch. There was food in abundance, music played on fiddle and guitar, and dancing that went on until the stars came out. Zara danced with Adam, with Miguel, with Martha's older brother who had traveled from Kansas for the wedding. She laughed until her sides hurt and ate cake until she was pleasantly full. As the evening drew to a close, she and Adam slipped away, climbing into a wagon decorated with ribbons and tin cans. They were heading to the ranch, to their home, to begin their life as husband and wife. The ranch house was dark and quiet when they arrived, lit only by the moon and the lamp Adam had left burning in the window. He helped Zara down from the wagon, then surprised her by sweeping her into his arms. "I am carrying you over the threshold properly," he announced, and proceeded to do just that, navigating the door with only minor difficulty. He set her down gently in the main room, which had been transformed. Candles flickered on every surface, casting a warm, golden glow. Wildflowers filled vases throughout the room. The whole space felt magical, intimate. "When did you do all this?" Zara asked, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "Miguel helped me set it up this morning. I wanted our first night here to be special." Adam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Welcome home, Mrs. Anderson." "Mrs. Anderson," Zara repeated, testing the name. "I like the sound of that." That night marked the true beginning of their life together, the physical union that matched the emotional and spiritual bonds they had already formed. Adam was gentle and patient, making sure Zara felt safe and loved. And when they finally came together, it was perfect in its imperfection, tender and passionate and full of promise. Afterward, they lay tangled together in bed, the candles burned down to nubs, talking quietly about their future. "I want to make you happy," Adam said, tracing patterns on her shoulder. "Every single day for the rest of our lives. You already do, just by being you." Zara tilted her face up to kiss him. We are going to build something wonderful together, Adam Anderson. I can feel it. The first months of marriage were an adjustment, as they learned to share space and merge their lives. Zara discovered that Adam snored softly when he slept on his back, that he was grumpy until his second cup of coffee, and that he sang off-key while doing chores. Adam learned that Zara organized their pantry with an intensity that bordered on obsessive, that she read in bed every night until her eyes absolutely refused to stay open, and that she had strong opinions about the correct way to fold towels. But they also discovered deeper things. They learned how to fight fairly, how to disagree without damaging their love. They learned each other's rhythms and needs. They learned that partnership meant sometimes sacrificing what you wanted for what was best for both of you. Zara threw herself into ranch life with enthusiasm. She took over all the bookkeeping, creating systems that allowed them to track every aspect of the operation with precision. She helped with the less physical aspects of ranching, learning to tend the chickens and manage the garden. She even learned to ride, though she never quite developed Adam's natural ease with horses. In turn, Adam supported Zara's continued work with the boarding house. He drove her to town twice a week so she could maintain the accounts and help Martha. He listened when she needed to talk through problems. He celebrated her successes as if they were his own. Winter came to Oklahoma, bringing cold winds and occasional snow. The ranch work shifted to maintenance and preparation for spring. Adam and Miguel spent long hours repairing equipment and planning for the next year's cattle drive. Zara organized all their records, creating detailed inventories and budgets that impressed even Adam's banker. On Christmas morning, they woke to find 6 inches of fresh snow blanketing the ranch. After opening their modest gifts to each other, they bundled up and walked through the winter wonderland, their breath forming clouds in the cold air. "I have been thinking about something," Zara said as they walked. "I want to talk to you about an idea I had. I am listening." "What if we started a lending library here at the ranch? Not just for us, but for the whole community. So many of the homesteaders out here have no access to books. We could collect donations, organize them, and let people borrow them for free. I could manage it alongside the ranch books." Zara spoke quickly, excited by the prospect. Adam stopped walking and turned to her with a huge smile. "That is brilliant. Why did I not think of that? We have the space for it and you have the organizational skills. Let us do it." "Really? You do not think it is silly?" "Silly. Zara, it is perfect. Education and entertainment for people who have precious little of either. We could use the front room that we hardly ever use. Build some shelves, set up a system for tracking the books." Adam pulled her close. "You are remarkable. Have I mentioned that lately?" "Not since breakfast," Zara teased. They spent the rest of the winter working on the library project. Word spread through the community, and donations began to arrive. Farmers brought books their children had outgrown. The boarding house guests left volumes behind. The church donated several boxes from their own collection. By March, they had over 300 books, neatly organized by category in the newly shelved front room. The grand opening of the Anderson Ranch Lending Library was a small but meaningful event. About 20 people came to see the collection and borrow books. Zara had created a simple ledger system for tracking loans, and she explained it with patience to everyone who asked. "This is wonderful," Mrs. Chen said, selecting a cookbook. "My daughters will be so excited. They have read their few books so many times they know them by heart." "Bring them by any time," Zara said warmly. "That is what it is here for." As spring arrived and the ranch burst into activity again, Zara began to notice changes in her body. Her monthly courses did not arrive in April. By May, she was certain. She waited until she was absolutely sure before telling Adam, wanting to give him the news in a special way. On a warm evening in late May, she made his favorite dinner and waited until they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset to speak. "Adam, I have something to tell you." He looked at her with immediate concern. "Are you all right? You have been quiet today." "I am more than all right. I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Adam just stared at her, his face frozen in shock. Then he let out a whoop of joy that probably scared the cattle, swept her into his arms, and spun her around. "A baby. We are having a baby. When? How do you feel? Should you be sitting down? Do you need anything?" The words tumbled out of him in a rush. Zara laughed, dizzy from spinning. "I am fine. The baby should come in January. And yes, I should probably sit down, but because you just spun me around like a top, not because I am pregnant." They spent the evening making plans, imagining their future child. Adam placed his hand on Zara's still flat stomach with reverence, already utterly in love with the life growing there. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Zara felt tired during the first few months, but otherwise well. Adam became almost comically overprotective, insisting she rest constantly and trying to stop her from doing any work. Zara had to firmly remind him that she was pregnant, not made of glass. "Women have been having babies while running households for centuries," she told him after he tried to carry her upstairs for the third time that week. "I appreciate your concern, but I promise I will tell you if I need help." Summer passed into fall, and Zara's belly swelled with their growing child. The library continued to thrive, with more and more families taking advantage of it. The ranch had its most successful year yet, with the cattle bringing excellent prices. Everything was falling into place beautifully. In December, Adam insisted that Martha come stay at the ranch for a few weeks before the baby's due date. He wanted to make sure Zara had all the help she might need. Martha arrived with bags full of baby clothes she had been sewing and more advice than anyone could possibly need. "My mother always said that a first baby comes when it wants to, never when you expect it," Martha said, settling into the guest room. She was right. Zara's labor started on a cold January night, 3 weeks before the expected date. One moment she was sleeping peacefully, the next she was awake with a contraction that took her breath away. "Adam," she gasped, gripping his arm, "the baby is coming." Adam shot out of bed like he had been launched from a cannon, immediately panicking. "Now, but it is too early. What do I do? Should I get the doctor? Should I boil water? Why do people always boil water?" "Get Martha," Zara said through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. "And yes, get the doctor, and calm down before you fall over." The next 12 hours were the longest of Zara's life. Labor was hard, painful, and exhausting in ways she had not imagined. Martha stayed by her side the entire time, offering encouragement and practical help. The doctor, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Sarah Morrison who had moved to Tulsa 2 years prior, was calm and competent. Adam paced outside the bedroom for most of it, despite Martha's assurances that he could come in. "I cannot watch her in pain," he said miserably to Miguel, who had come up to the house to offer support. "I feel so helpless." Finally, as the sun began to set on what had been the longest day of Adam's life, he heard it. The sharp, lusty cry of a newborn baby. He was through the door before anyone could stop him. Zara lay exhausted against the pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but radiant. And in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was the tiniest, most perfect human being Adam had ever seen. "It is a boy," Zara said softly. "We have a son." Adam approached slowly, reverently, as if moving through a dream. He looked down at the small face, red and wrinkled and absolutely beautiful. His son, his child. "Can I hold him?" he asked, his voice breaking. Zara carefully transferred the baby to Adam's arms, showing him how to support the head. Adam held his son for the first time, feeling the slight weight, the warmth, the reality of this new life they had created. Tears streamed down his face unchecked. "Hello," he whispered. "Hello, little one, I am your father. I am going to love you so much. I am going to teach you everything I know. I am going to make sure you grow up safe and happy and loved. What should we name him?" Zara asked, watching the two of them with a smile. They had discussed names for months without settling on anything definite. But looking at his son now, Adam knew, "James, after your father, James Hayes Anderson." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "That is perfect. Hello, James. Welcome to the world, little one." The first weeks with a newborn were chaotic and exhausting. James was a healthy baby but a frequent feeder, waking every 2 hours around the clock. Zara and Adam stumbled through those early days in a haze of exhaustion and overwhelming love. Martha stayed for 3 weeks, helping with everything from cooking to laundry to soothing the baby when he fussed. Adam was a devoted father from the first moment. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floor at 3 in the morning when James would not settle, and talked to his son constantly, telling him about the ranch, about the cattle, about the big wide world he would grow up in. "You are going to love it here," Adam said one night, holding James against his shoulder while Zara tried to snatch a few hours of sleep. "We have horses and cattle and wide open spaces. Your mother has created a library that would make a city proud. You will grow up with books and learning and love. You will never doubt that you are wanted, James. Never." As winter gave way to spring, they settled into a routine. James grew bigger and stronger, his eyes opening to reveal the same deep blue as Zara's. He began to smile, then to laugh, each milestone celebrated like a miracle. The ranch continued to prosper. Adam hired another hand to help Miguel, a young man named Tom who was hardworking and reliable. This freed up more of Adam's time to spend with his family, something he valued more than any amount of money. On a warm April evening, with James sleeping peacefully in a cradle on the porch and Zara reading beside him, Adam felt a sense of contentment so complete it almost frightened him. "What are you thinking about?" Zara asked, noticing his expression. "About how different my life is now compared to 3 years ago. If someone had told me then that I would have a wife I adored, a son who makes my heart ache with love, and a home that actually feels like one, I would not have believed them. I thought I was destined for a solitary life, just me and the ranch." "I am glad you were wrong," Zara said softly. "Me too. You know what the strangest part is? It all started with coffee. You needed coffee, and I happened to have some. If the shipment had not been delayed, if I had not been in town that day, if you had not been standing outside the general store looking so frustrated." Adam shook his head in wonder. All these tiny moments that had to align perfectly. "I think we would have found each other eventually," Zara said. "Some things are meant to be. Maybe, but I am grateful it happened when it did. I do not want to think about how many more days I might have gone without knowing you." Adam reached over and took her hand. "You are my morning, Zara. Not the coffee, not the sunrise. You. The thought of seeing you, of being with you, that is what gets me up each day with enthusiasm. You are what I have been waiting for my whole life, even when I did not know I was waiting." Zara squeezed his hand, too moved for words. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the Oklahoma sky in brilliant colors, their son sleeping between them, their future stretching out bright and full of promise. The years that followed were good ones. James grew into a bright, curious toddler, then a clever boy who loved books almost as much as his mother did. When he was 3, Zara discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she was less nervous, more confident. She knew what to expect. Their second child, a daughter they named Alice Martha Anderson, was born on a cool October morning in 1891. She had Adam's brown eyes and a head of dark hair that stood up in adorable tufts. James was fascinated by his baby sister, constantly wanting to help care for her. "I will teach her everything," he announced seriously. "About horses and reading and how to catch frogs in the creek. Those are all very important skills," Zara said, hiding a smile. With 2 children, the ranch house felt full in the best possible way. There was always noise, always activity, always love. Adam expanded the house again, adding more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. The library grew to over 1,000 books, becoming a true community resource that people came from miles away to use. Zara continued to manage both the ranch accounts and the boarding house books, though Martha had hired a young woman to help with the day-to-day operations. At 60 now, Martha was slowing down but remained sharp as ever. The years passed in a blur of small moments that accumulated into a life. James starting school, Alice taking her first steps, family dinners around the big table, Christmas mornings full of laughter and modest gifts, summer picnics by the creek, the daily rhythm of ranch work, the quiet evenings on the porch after the children were in bed. In 1893, when James was 5 and Alice was 2, Oklahoma Territory was reorganized as preparations began for eventual statehood. Tulsa was growing, transforming from a frontier town into a real community with schools, churches, and even talk of a railroad spur. "Everything is changing," Adam observed one evening reading the newspaper. "They are saying statehood could come within the next decade or 2. "Change is not always bad," Zara said, mending one of James's shirts. "Look at how our lives have changed. Would you go back to how things were before?" "Not for anything in the world," Adam said immediately. "I just hope the changes bring good things for our children. I want them to have opportunities, education, choices." "They will. We will make sure of it." In 1895, Zara found herself pregnant for a 3rd time. She was 31 now, Adam was 33, and they had not planned for another child. But the surprise was a welcome one. James, now 7, and Alice, now 4, were excited about the prospect of another sibling. "I hope it is a brother," James said. "Then we can play more rough games without worrying about Alice." "I hope it is a sister," Alice countered. "Then I will not be the only girl." "We will love whoever it is," Zara said diplomatically. The pregnancy was more difficult this time. Zara was exhausted in a way she had not been before, and the doctor warned her to rest more. Adam immediately cut back on her responsibilities, taking over more of the household management and insisting she stay off her feet as much as possible. "I am pregnant, not dying," Zara protested, but she could not deny that she felt worn out. The baby, another boy they named Henry, was born in March of 1896. The labor was long and difficult, and Dr. Morrison pulled Adam aside afterward with a serious expression. "Zara and the baby are both fine," she said, "but I need to be clear with you. Another pregnancy would be very risky for her. Her body has been through a lot. She is not as young as she was with James, and this labor took more out of her than it should have. Do you understand what I am telling you?" Adam understood. No more children. 3 was enough, was more than enough. He went back into the bedroom where Zara held their newest son and made a silent vow to keep her safe always. Henry proved to be a calm, easy baby, much more so than his older siblings had been. He ate well, slept well, and seemed content to observe the world with curious eyes. James and Alice doted on him, constantly wanting to hold him or help with his care. "Our family is complete," Adam said one evening, watching all 3 children. James was reading a book in the corner, Alice was playing with her doll, and Henry was sleeping in Zara's arms. This is everything I ever wanted and more than I ever expected." "Me too," Zara agreed. "I still think about that day in town when I was so desperate for coffee. I was so focused on what I thought I needed. I had no idea that what I actually needed was walking toward me. We both needed each other, and some coffee. Let us not forget the coffee was still important," Zara laughed. "Always the coffee." The children grew. James developed a love of learning that rivaled his mother's, devouring every book in the library and constantly asking for more. Adam began teaching him ranch management, showing him the business side of running the operation. Alice turned out to have a gift with animals, able to calm even the most skittish horse with her gentle touch. And Henry, as he grew from baby to toddler, showed signs of having his father's practical nature and his mother's organizational skills. In 1899, when James was 11, Alice was 8, and Henry was 3, the family took a trip to visit relatives in Kansas. It was James's first time leaving Oklahoma Territory, and he was full of questions and excitement. The journey took several days by train, and the children were fascinated by everything they saw. Adam's mother had passed away 2 years prior, but his stepfather still lived on the family farm. Adam had not seen him in over 15 years, and the visit was more about closure than reconciliation. His stepfather was old now, his health failing, and whatever anger or resentment he had once directed at Adam seemed to have faded. "You did well for yourself," the old man said grudgingly, watching James and Alice play in the yard. "Better than I thought you would." "I had help," Adam said, glancing at Zara, "and motivation. Turns out spite is a powerful force, but love is stronger." On the train ride back to Oklahoma, Zara leaned against Adam's shoulder while the children slept in their seats. "That could not have been easy for you." "It was not. But it was necessary. I needed to see that he does not have power over me anymore. He is just an old man who made bad choices. I am not defined by his opinion of me. I am defined by the life I built, the family I love, the man I chose to become." Adam kissed the top of her head. "And I could not have done any of it without you." As the new century dawned, the Anderson family found themselves well-established pillars of the Tulsa community. Adam served on the town council, working on issues of water rights and grazing land management. Zara had helped establish a proper public library in town, using the experience from their ranch library. The children attended the territorial school, excelling in their studies. The ranch itself had grown into one of the most successful operations in the region. Adam now employed 5 full-time hands and hired additional help during busy seasons. Miguel had become more friend than employee, his own family living in a house on the property. The cattle operation was profitable, the land was well maintained, and the future looked secure. On their 15th wedding anniversary in November of 1900, Adam took Zara back to the spot where he had proposed, the creek on the north pasture. The cottonwood trees had grown taller, the water still flowed clear and cold, and the sky was the same endless blue. 15 years, Adam marveled. "It feels like both a lifetime and no time at all." "I know what you mean. When I look at our children, I see all the years. When I look at you, I feel like we are still just beginning." Zara leaned into his embrace. "Do you remember what you said when you proposed?" "About wanting to wake up next to me every morning." "I meant every word. Still do." "I used to think I needed coffee for my mornings, that it was essential, non-negotiable, and then you became my morning. You are what I await, what makes each day worth greeting." The coffee was just the excuse that brought us together. Adam pulled her closer, his heart full to bursting. "I love you, Zara Anderson, more today than yesterday, less than tomorrow." They stood there for a long time, holding each other, watching the water flow past. Behind them lay 15 years of memories, joys and challenges faced together. Ahead of them stretched more years, unknown but anticipated, whatever they might bring. The years continued to unfold in their steady pattern. James grew into a responsible young man, deciding at 16 that he wanted to attend college, something neither of his parents had done. Adam and Zara saved carefully, determined to give him that opportunity. Alice discovered a talent for training horses, developing techniques that were surprisingly effective. Henry showed an aptitude for mathematics and engineering, constantly taking things apart to see how they worked. In 1907, when Oklahoma achieved statehood, the Anderson family attended the celebration in Guthrie. They watched as the proclamation was signed, as their territory became the 46th state in the Union. James was 19, Alice was 16, and Henry was 11. They stood together as a family, part of history, part of the great American story of settlement and growth. "We are Oklahomans now," James said, grinning. "Not territorial residents, actual citizens of an actual state. We always were Oklahomans," Adam corrected gently. "The paperwork is just catching up to reality." Life continued its forward march. James went off to college in Missouri, studying agriculture and business. He wrote home regularly, his letters full of new ideas and concepts he wanted to implement on the ranch. Alice married at 20, a young veterinarian named Robert Stone who had moved to Tulsa to start a practice. They built a house near the ranch, and Alice continued working with horses while raising 2 children of her own. Henry followed his brother to college, studying engineering with the goal of bringing modern techniques to Oklahoma farming and ranching. Zara and Adam grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. Gray threaded through Adam's dark hair, and lines formed around Zara's eyes from years of smiling. They moved a bit slower, tired a bit more easily, but their partnership remained as strong as ever. On a morning in 1920, Zara woke before dawn as she always did. At 56, she still maintained her routine, still needed her coffee to properly start the day. She made her way to the kitchen, ground the beans with practiced ease, and set the pot to brew. Adam appeared in the doorway, his hair standing up in sleep-tousled tufts, his eyes still heavy. At 58, he was still handsome to her, still the man who had offered her coffee all those years ago and given her everything. "Morning," he mumbled, making his way to her side. "Morning," she said, pouring 2 cups of the fresh brew. They stood at the kitchen window, sipping their coffee in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The ranch spread out before them, testament to decades of hard work and love. Their children were grown and settled. Their grandchildren were healthy and happy. The library that had started as an idea now served hundreds of families. The life they had built together was solid, enduring, good. "You ever think about that day in town?" Adam asked, wrapping his arm around her waist. "When you were so desperate for coffee all the time," Zara admitted. "I think about how close we came to never meeting. If I had gone to the store an hour earlier or later, if you had not had extra coffee, if I had been too proud to accept help from a stranger. But we did meet, and I am grateful every single day." Adam kissed her temple. "You are still my morning, Zara. After all these years, you are still what I await." "And you are mine," she said softly. They finished their coffee as the sun fully rose, then went out to face the day together as they had for over 35 years. There would be work to do, people to see, a life to continue living. But they would do it all together, partners in everything, bound by a love that had started with something as simple as coffee and had grown into something extraordinary. The ranch prospered under their continued stewardship. James eventually took over most of the day-to-day operations, bringing in new techniques and ideas while respecting the foundation his parents had built. Alice's horse training business became renowned throughout Oklahoma, with people traveling from other states to work with her. Henry designed irrigation systems that transformed farming in the region, making his parents proud with his innovations. Zara and Adam gradually stepped back from active management, becoming advisors and grandparents, roles they embraced fully. They took joy in watching their grandchildren grow, in passing on stories and wisdom, in being present for the small moments that accumulated into childhood memories. In the summer of 1925, the family organized a massive reunion at the ranch to celebrate Adam and Zara's 40th wedding anniversary. Children and grandchildren gathered, along with friends from throughout their life together. Martha, now 90 and sharp as ever, made the trip from town with assistants. Miguel and his family were there. Even some of Adam's old acquaintances from Kansas made the journey. The celebration lasted an entire weekend, with food and music and laughter filling the ranch. Stories were told, memories shared, love expressed freely. On Sunday evening, as the party was winding down, Adam and Zara found themselves once again alone on the porch, their favorite spot, watching the sun set. 40 years, Zara marveled. Where did the time go? Into a life well lived, Adam said. Into children raised and grandchildren loved. Into work that mattered and a community built. Into every morning I woke up beside you. I would not change a single thing, Zara said firmly. Well, maybe I would have discovered Alice's gift with horses sooner. That would have saved us some frustration when she was 13. Adam laughed. True, but even the frustrations were worth it. They are part of the tapestry, the full picture of our life. They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the sky darken and the stars emerge one by one. The ranch was quiet now, their guests either departed or settled in for the night. The sounds of evening creatures filled the air, familiar and soothing. Thank you, Zara said suddenly. For what? For having extra coffee that day. For being kind to a desperate stranger. For proposing by the creek. For being patient with me when I was learning to be a wife and a mother. For building this life with me. For 40 years of mornings. Adam turned to her, taking both her hands in his. Thank you for accepting the coffee, for seeing past the rough exterior of a struggling rancher, for saying yes when I proposed, for teaching me what real partnership means. For giving me a family, a purpose, a reason to be grateful every single day. You did not just give me your mornings, Zara. You gave me everything. They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 40 years of love and promised more to come. When they pulled apart, Zara rested her head on Adam's shoulder, feeling his steady heartbeat, his warmth, his presence that had been her constant for so long. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Always have, always will. The years that followed were gentler, slower paced. Adam and Zara fully retired from ranch work, leaving it in James's capable hands. They traveled some, visiting places they had always wanted to see. They read extensively, working their way through the ever-expanding library. They spent time with their grandchildren, passing on family history and values. They simply existed together, finding joy in the quiet moments that youth often overlooked. Zara's health began to decline when she was 68. Nothing dramatic, just the slow wearing down that came with age. Her joints ached more, her energy faded faster, her memory became less reliable. Adam, facing his own aging body at 70, became even more devoted, helping with tasks that had once been simple, being patient when she forgot things, treasuring each day they had together. One morning in the spring of 1932, Zara woke feeling particularly tired. Adam helped her to the kitchen for their morning coffee, a ritual they had maintained for nearly half a century. They sat together in the dawn light, and Zara found herself thinking back to that day in Tulsa so long ago. "I was so angry about that coffee," she said with a soft laugh. "So fixated on something so small, I could not see what was really coming, the gift I was about to receive." "God works in mysterious ways," Adam said. "Or fate, or luck, whatever you want to call it. But yes, you were terribly grumpy that day." "I was not grumpy, I was desperate. There is a difference." But she was smiling. "You were also beautiful, even with that fierce scowl. I took one look at you and thought, now there is a woman who knows what she wants and will not settle for less." "And were you what I wanted?" Zara asked teasingly. "Eventually," Adam said with a grin. "After I wore down your defenses with my charm and excellent coffee." They laughed together, the sound filling the kitchen with warmth. Outside, the ranch was waking up. Birds sang their morning songs. Cattle lowed in the distance. The world continued its eternal patterns, seasons cycling, life renewing itself constantly. Zara took Adam's hand across the table. "Promise me something, anything. If I go first, do not stop living. Keep having your morning coffee. Keep reading books. Keep being part of the world. I cannot bear the thought of you withdrawing." "Zara." Adam's voice was thick with emotion. "Do not talk like that. We have to talk about it sometime. We are not young anymore, my love, but that is okay. We have had such a good run." She squeezed his hand. "Promise me." "I promise. But you have to promise me the same thing. If I go first, you keep going. You finish your story." "I promise." They finished their coffee, then spent the day together as they had spent countless days before. They read in the library. They walked slowly around the ranch, noting the changes and constants. They had dinner with James's family. They sat on the porch and watched the sunset paint the sky. That night, as they prepared for bed, Adam held Zara close. "Thank you for today." "It was just a regular day," Zara said, confused. "That is what makes it perfect. A regular day with you is better than an extraordinary day without you." The truth was that all their days together were extraordinary, even the quiet ones. Especially the quiet ones. The grand moments mattered, but it was the accumulation of ordinary mornings, shared coffee, comfortable silences, and gentle touches that built a life. Adam and Zara lived on for several more years, their love remaining constant even as their bodies grew frailer. They saw Henry marry and have children. They attended Alice's daughter's wedding. They celebrated James becoming a grandfather, making them great-grandparents. Their family tree spread wide and strong, rooted in the love they had nurtured so carefully. On a morning in October 1936, 72-year-old Zara passed away peacefully in her sleep, Adam's hand clasped in hers. She simply did not wake up, slipping from one dream to another. Adam held her hand for a long time, tears streaming down his face, grateful that she had not suffered, devastated by the loss. The funeral was attended by over 200 people, testament to the life she had lived and the impact she had made. Speakers talked about her intelligence, her kindness, her organizational genius, her role in establishing the public library system. But what Adam remembered most was the private moments, the quiet mornings, the way she smiled when she took that first sip of coffee. True to his promise, Adam continued living. He kept having his morning coffee, though it tasted hollow without her across the table. He kept reading, though he found himself wanting to share passages with her. He kept being part of the world, though a piece of his heart was forever gone. He lived 3 more years, years filled with the love of his children and grandchildren, years of watching the ranch continue to prosper, years of remembering. On a cold January morning in 1940, 76-year-old Adam Anderson joined his beloved wife. He passed quietly, a photograph of Zara from their wedding day clutched in his hand. They were buried side by side in the Tulsa cemetery under a large oak tree. Their shared headstone was simple: Adam and Zara Anderson, partners in life, united in death. Their love story began with coffee and lasted a lifetime. The ranch continued under James's stewardship, then passed to his children. The library that bore Zara's name still served the community. The irrigation systems Henry designed still functioned. The horse training techniques Alice pioneered were still taught. The love that Adam and Zara had built together, the family they had created, the life they had lived, it all endured. And somewhere in the great mystery beyond life, in whatever comes after, Adam and Zara were together again, sharing their morning coffee, watching eternal sunrises, their love story continuing in ways beyond mortal understanding. Because some bonds transcend time and space. Some love stories do not end with death, but simply transform, becoming part of the eternal fabric of the universe. Adam and Zara's love was one of those stories, beginning with such simple needs, coffee and connection, and growing into something magnificent that would ripple forward through generations. Proof that the greatest adventures often start with the smallest moments, and that true love, once found, never truly ends.